You offered yourself. Not even somebody else offered you, but you offered yourself into slavery. He said that, here's the deal. At one time you offered yourself as a slave to sin. Where did that lead to? Where did that get you? What did it produce? He says, well, it produced death. Separation. Remember what the word death means? Literal separation. Later on he says, and what benefit did you reap at the time from the things you are now ashamed of? So you offered yourself. And you were mastered by those things. Now offer yourself to God. To be mastered by God. Guys, I can get blank stares out here, okay? He says, I'm using this analogy because of your weak, sinful nature. This is not the best analogy in the world, but he says it is an analogy. It's another way to look at how do you control your behavior. Who do you belong to? Who do you belong to? Now, there's some things that we do feel comfortable. We talk about, all right, you can't serve God and money. Jesus talked about that. And we said, we like that one. We know that. I can't serve God and money. Right? He's saying you either serve God or you serve your sinful nature. Sin. Now remember, several words for sin. Right? The word we use in the Lord's Supper, trespass. Right? A trespass is something you do against a command. That's a trespass. A sin is that archery term where you miss the mark. Where you're supposed to be like something and you're not like that. That is sin. You're supposed to be like God. You're supposed to act like God. You're supposed to give like God, forgive like God. You're supposed to imitate God. And when you mess up, you miss the mark. And can you legislate all the ways you're supposed to be like God? No. You can't. There was a sin and a trespass, okay? You want to live under law, you're going to live under trespassing. And you have sinned. You've missed the mark. And you will experience separation. Not just from God, but from all your relationships. He says you can go that way, you can serve sin. But why would you want to do that? Why? Well, because that's what comes natural to me. It is what comes natural to you. Your first thought, your first reaction is probably not God's first thought and his first reaction. Okay? You just got to wear that all the time. What seems fair to you? It's probably not what seems fair to God. Your thoughts are not his thoughts. His ways are not your ways. As his ways are higher than the heavens, so his ways are above your ways, and his thoughts are above your thoughts. And God is holy. And every week we come and we acknowledge that, and we say, God is God, and we are not. And sometimes I forget that this week, but I remember it right now, and I want to remember it all week long. God is God. I serve him, not my sinful nature. Go over to chapter 12 again. Chapter 12, Romans chapter 12. Chapter 12 is kind of what we're building up to. We looked at it 2 weeks ago. In verse 1 he says, therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer yourselves as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You learn to think differently. The renewing of your mind. Not the same old processes, not the same old thoughts, the renewing of your mind. He says, then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, good, pleasing, and perfect will. Now remember, we're still in the midst of whether you're going to go with the law or whether you're going to go with grace. And what we're talking about now is how do you control your behavior if you decide to give up law? You learn to think differently. Then you can test and approve what God's will is. Or you remain a slave to sin. He says, God set you free. You were set free from sin. You can go back. You can go back that way. Or you can learn how to think completely different. You can be a slave to righteousness. What a strange term. You can serve. You can offer your members of your body. And we're going to talk about that. Because it turns out with Paul, so the reason you have a sinful nature is because you have a body. This is what Paul believes. This is going to come out in his teachings. And we're going to suffer with this thing until we get rid of... Yeah, that sounds fun. Until we get rid of this body. He says, all right, you can offer your members of the body as slaves to sin, or you can serve righteousness. You can think completely different. You can think about your baptism, your commitment, the death that you died. You can think about how excited you were when you were set free from sin. You can think about what it means to take the Lord's Supper, what it means for the blood of Christ to take away your sin, what it means for that sacrifice. And you can learn to think in a whole new way. We're here to encourage each other to think in a whole new way. To fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. To understand what it means to trust that God really wants what's best for us. This sin isn't something out there that says, oh, this is really good and you can't have it. But God called it sin because it's not really good for you. It's not something that makes you into a whole person. You can look at it a whole new way. And you can be free. Free. This morning we're going to sing an invitation song. What a friend we have in Jesus. If you believe that you have a friend in Jesus, if you haven't made that commitment to Him as a friend, if you haven't made that commitment to Him as a Lord and Savior, we want to help you. If you haven't come to the faith, if you haven't come to the trust that He desires what's best for you, we want to help you. If somehow you've taken your eyes off Jesus, somehow you become a slave to some kind of sin again, or something has drawn your attention away from Jesus, we want to be able to help you. That's what we're here for. Because we believe Jesus is Lord and Savior. If there's any